The Kentucky Derby has its polished favorites, bred for glory and backed with millions. But then there are the others that no one saw coming. These are horses that walked into Churchill Downs overlooked, and some even ridiculed, only to thunder into history. These are stories about winning and about shattering expectations. Today, you'll celebrate 16 Kentucky Derby winners who came out of nowhere and unforgettably stole the roses. We kick things off with Ferdinand. The 1986 Derby crowd saw a legend in the saddle. Bill Shoemaker, at 54, was chasing one more big win, and Ferdinand gave it to him. The chestnut colt wasn't flashy in the paddock. He looked calm, almost lazy, but when the gates opened, he showed his grit. Trained by Charlie Whittingham, who had been chasing roses for decades, Ferdinand broke from post one and settled deep in the pack. For most of the mile and a quarter, he hugged the rail, saving ground while others burned themselves out. Then Shoemaker guided him outside, and Ferdinand responded with a powerful drive. He stopped the clock in 2 minutes, 2.8 seconds, surging past bold arrangement. It was Shoemaker's 4th Derby win, Whittingham's 1st, and Ferdinand's crowning moment before he later became Horse of the Year in 1987. Now, let's move to a colt who came flying from the clouds. Next up is Strike the Gold. Churchill Downs in 1991 was wide open, but no one expected the colt in blue and white silks to steal the show. Strike the Gold was a bay with a long stride and a stubborn streak. His trainer, Nick Zito, believed in him, even when the odds sat at 9-1. Jockey Chris Antley kept him buried near the back through the first turn, while the pace up front was fierce. As the field hit the far turn, Antley swung wide, and Strike the Gold unleashed a furious run. He powered past Best Pal and Hansel, driving down the stretch to win by a length. The crowd roared as the board lit up. 2:03. Strike the Gold gave Zito his first Derby and Antley his second, though he never matched that high again. His Derby triumph remains one of the most memorable of the early 90s. But the Derby wasn't done serving shocks. Claiming the spotlight now is the next outsider. Coming in next is Thunder Gulch. Nobody wanted him. At 24-1 odds, Thunder Gulch was dismissed as Lucas's other horse, standing in the shadows of bigger names. Compact but rugged, the chestnut colt had a grinding stride that didn't quit. Gary Stevens settled him in mid-pack, watching the frontrunners tear through brutal fractions. By the far turn, the pace collapsed, and Stevens let him loose. Thunder Gulch stormed past Tejano Run and Timber Country, driving hard all the way to the finish. The clock stopped at 2:01.27, one of the fastest Derby times in history. Gasps filled the grandstand as the Longshot's name flashed on the board. For trainer D. Wayne Lucas, it was a long-awaited first Derby win. For Thunder Gulch, it was the start of a season where he'd also claim the Belmont and prove every doubter wrong. Before we step into the next Derby winner, hit play on the fastest Kentucky Derby's horses ever recorded. It's right on your screen. Rolling into view is I'll Have Another. The roar at Churchill Downs in 2012 wasn't for a polished favorite, but for a chestnut colt few had taken seriously. Light-bodied with a sharp eye, he carried the kind of hunger you can't train. Under the guidance of Doug O'Neill and with rookie jockey Mario Gutierrez making his Derby debut, he broke from post 19, considered a graveyard spot. The early fractions were hot, but he stalked the pace with a smooth stride, waiting to strike. As the leaders began to fade, he surged down the stretch, catching Bodemeister in the final yards. The clock read 2:01.83, and the stands erupted in disbelief. A 15-1 shot had just stunned the field. That win lit a spark that carried him to a Preakness victory, before injury cut short what looked like a Triple Crown dream. One dream ended too soon, but the Derby never stops writing new stories. Up next is a gelding who broke every mold. Now, meet funny Cide. They called him the everyman's horse, and he carried himself like he was everyone's best friend. A tall chestnut gelding with a white blaze, Funny Cide brought New York pride to Churchill Downs in 2003. He didn't come from glamorous bloodlines or polished barns, but he had grit stitched into every stride. From post 6, he broke clean and tucked in just behind the pace. Up ahead, Empire Maker, shiny, pedigreed, and heavily favored, waited to crush the field. But when the stretch opened, Funny Cide answered with power. His stride lengthened, driving harder with every step until he surged clear by almost 2 lengths. When the timer flashed 2:01.19, the grandstand erupted, voices rising for the blue-collar gelding who had just toppled racing's aristocracy. And he wasn't finished. 2 weeks later, he rolled into Pimlico and roared home again in the Preakness. One underdog had already shaken the sport, yet the Derby wasn't done proving that lightning can strike again. Before we dive into the next winner, make sure you hit subscribe so you never miss these stories of racing's most shocking moments. At this point, we meet Mage. Fresh faces don't usually own the Derby, but in 2023, a lightly raced colt rewrote that script. With only 3 starts under his belt, he came in overlooked at 15-1. Sleek and athletic, he carried the air of a horse still learning, yet full of fire. Trained by Gustavo Delgado and ridden by Javier Castellano, a veteran still chasing his first Derby win, he broke clean and tracked the leaders with patience. As 2 fills surged to the front in the stretch, Castellano angled wide. That's when the colt found another gear, driving hard and pulling clear in the final strides. When the board flashed 2 minutes 1.57 seconds, the crowd erupted, stunned that such inexperience had just conquered Churchill Downs. It was Castellano's long-awaited moment, Delgado's greatest triumph, and proof that even raw talent can rise above the weight of tradition. Raw talent had stolen the roses, but the Derby has never been shy about crowning outsiders from the shadows. Next on our list is Gato Del Sol. He wasn't supposed to be there at the end, but Churchill Downs loves a closer with perfect timing. And in 1982, Gato Del Sol fit the bill. He was a gray colt with a smooth, loping stride, who lacked the raw speed of the favorites, but carried stamina bred for distance. With Eddie Gregson calling the shots and Eddie De La Houssaye in the irons, he broke quietly from the gate and drifted to the back. The pace up front was furious, setting the table for his late kick. Down the stretch, De La Houssaye swung him wide, and Gato Del Sol gobbled ground with every stride. He swept past Air Forbes 1 and Laserlight to hit the wire in 2 minutes and 2.8 seconds, paying 21-1. Fans were stunned as the gray outsider stormed home, never to win another race again. That Derby triumph stood alone, but it remains one of the great upsets in modern memory. One upset can shake the stands, but nothing stirs the Derby more than the day a living legend gets brought down. Charging into history is Dark Star. The roar at Churchill in 1953 wasn't for a long shot charging late, it was for a front-runner that refused to fold. Dark Star, a narrow-framed bay with more grit than flash, shot straight to the front under jockey Henry Moreno. Every step down the backstretch looked like borrowed time, the kind of pace no one believed he could hold. Behind him, Native Dancer, the nation's darling with 21 wins and 22 starts, was bottled up in traffic, fighting for daylight. When the gray ghost finally broke free, the grandstand expected him to roll past, but Dark Star never let go. He clung to the lead, his stride pounding all the way to the wire in 2 minutes and 2 seconds flat. 1 length clear, 1 giant shock. It was a victory that toppled an idol and left a colt, with a short career stamped forever into Derby lore. Toppling a legend is rare enough, but the Derby loves rewriting rules in even stranger ways. Achieving the unexpected is Animal Kingdom. Nobody expected a turf colt to rule on dirt, but that's exactly what happened in 2011. Animal Kingdom had never touched the surface before Derby Day. A tall, chestnut son of Leroy DeSanimo, he looked more like a grass runner than a Churchill warrior. Trained by Graham Motion and piloted by John Velasquez, who picked up the mount last minute, he broke clean from post 16 and settled mid-pack. The early fractions were sharp. perfect for a stalker with stamina. Coming off the far turn, Velázquez tipped him wide, and the colt unleashed a sweeping run that swallowed the leaders whole. He hit the wire in 2:02 flat, clear of narrow. One surprise came from turf to dirt, but the Derby's next shock rode in from overseas, carrying doubt all the way to Churchill, and launched a career that would later include the Dubai World Cup. One surprise came from turf to dirt, but the Derby's next shock rode in from overseas, carrying doubt all the way to Churchill. Making waves next is Canonero II. They laughed when he stepped off the plane. Thin, tired, and shipped from Venezuela, Canonero II didn't look like a Derby horse. His trainer, Juan Arias, believed though, and jockey Gustavo Avila never lost faith. On May 1st, 1971, he broke from post 8 with little fanfare. The early pace scorched, but Avila kept him relaxed, cruising along mid-pack. As the field hit the far turn, Canonero's stride opened up. He weaved through horses, then stormed past the leaders with a drive that silenced doubters. The wire came at 2:03.2, and the Longshot had won by almost 4 lengths. The crowd, stunned, had just witnessed one of the most improbable Derby upsets. That victory wasn't a fluke. He went on to claim the Preakness, nearly capturing the Triple Crown, and proving the world had underestimated a champion. Some champions arrive with disbelief trailing behind them, but others start dismissed as nothing more than practice horses. Stealing the stage is Exterminator. The track was heavy with mud in 1918, and the favorites tore out of the gate like they wanted to finish in half the distance. Sitting far back was Exterminator, a big, bony bay most folks thought had no business in the Derby. He'd been bought as a workout mate, a horse to toughen up the barn's real star. Only when that one went lame did trainer Henry McDaniel even think of entering him. Willie Knapp climbed aboard, kept him tucked away, and let the pace burn itself out. Then, quietly, Exterminator began to grind forward. One by one, he swallowed the leaders until the stretch opened, and suddenly, the spare horse was flying. He crossed first in 2 minutes 40.80 seconds, shocking everyone. That wasn't luck. Exterminator went on to win 50 races, proving the plain horse they overlooked was built from iron. Some winners proved toughness over a lifetime, while the next one etched their name in a single, stunning burst that nobody saw coming. In the next spot stands Giacomo. 50-1 odds don't usually buy roses, but in 2005, they did. Giacomo, a tall gray son of Holy Bull, had only one win to his name and wasn't taken seriously by bettors. Trainer John Shireffs kept him sharp, and jockey Mike Smith trusted his grinding style. The pace up front was blazing, with Spanish Chestnut dragging the field into suicidal fractions. By the far turn, favorites wilted. From the back, Giacomo began picking them off, his long stride relentless through the stretch. Smith threaded him between fading rivals and drove past closing argument to win by half a length. The time, 2:02.75, sealed one of the Derby's biggest shocks. For Shireffs, it was a career-making triumph, and for Giacomo, it was a moment that defined him forever. The next upset came flying from the clouds when it mattered most. Swooping down the stretch is Mind That Bird. He wasn't just small. He looked like he didn't belong. In 2009, Mind That Bird walked onto Churchill's dirt as a 50-1 afterthought. No glamour, no buzz, just a scrappy gelding hauled in a horse trailer behind a pickup. Calvin Borel climbed aboard and was unfazed by the doubters. From the break, it looked hopeless. Dead last, buried in the spray of dirt, the little bay was nearly invisible. But Borel waited, clinging to the rail, patient as chaos unfolded up front. Then the hole came. Mind That Bird exploded, slipping through inside like a bullet. In seconds, he went from forgotten to untouchable, crossing in 2 minutes, 2 seconds, and 66 hundredths, and leaving the favorites reeling. The crowd's gasp turned to roars. What started as a long shot joke ended as one of the Derby's most unforgettable shockwaves. Fans were still buzzing, but controversy soon decided who got the roses. Then came Country House. The 2019 Derby ended with noise, not certainty. Boos rumbled, cheers clashed, and the crowd waited as stewards pored over replays. For 22 minutes, the roses hung in limbo. On the track, the towering chestnut Country House had run its race, grinding steadily on the outside under Flavian Pratt. His stride never faltered, even as maximum security seemed to have sealed the deal. But the replay revealed a harsher truth. One horse drifting out, slicing across lanes and forcing rivals to slam on the brakes. When the ruling came, the shock was instant. Maximum security was out. Country House was in official time. 2 minutes and 3.93 seconds. Bill Mott's colt had just become the first Derby winner crowned through disqualification. It wasn't the fairy tale fans expected, but it etched his name in Derby history as one of the most controversial times in the Kentucky Derby. Controversy had barely settled when another Longshot stormed into Derby lore. Storming out of nowhere is Rich Strike. The stretch at Churchill was chaos. Horses weaving, favorites fading, the crowd locked on epicenter and Zandon locked in battle. Then, out of nowhere, a chestnut blur shot through the pack like a thief in the night. Only seconds earlier, he was invisible at the back. Trailing by double digits, his jockey, Sonny Leon, had been patient, slipping rails, sneaking pockets, saving ground no one else dared risk. By the wire, it wasn't the stars up front, but Rich Strike flashing past, stopping the clock in 2 minutes and 2.61 seconds. Fans gasped, stunned at the ambush. He hadn't even been in the race until the day before. A late entry at 80-1 odds. Eric Reed's colt didn't just steal the roses. He delivered one of the most jaw-dropping upsets in Derby history. Just when it seemed the Derby couldn't script a wilder upset, history reminds us there's one shock that still towers above the rest. And finally, topping it all is Donerail. Churchill Downs had seen upsets before, but nothing prepared the crowd for 1913. At 91-1 odds, Donerail was ignored and dismissed as a punchline. Small, lean, and owned by a local horseman, he didn't look like he belonged in the same gate as the favorites. But jockey Roscoe Goose had other plans. Breaking clean, Donerail stayed tucked away while the leaders set a punishing tempo. Down the stretch, Goose asked, and the colt answered with a furious drive. He stormed past 10-point, legs pounding, lungs burning, the wire rushing to meet him. The board lit up. 2 minutes and 4.8 seconds. The stands erupted in shock while bettors holding his tickets were suddenly rich, others speechless. To this day, no horse has won the Derby at longer odds. Donerail beat the field and redefined what an underdog could do at Churchill. From Shoemaker's calm hands to Donerail's impossible odds, these Derby shocks prove legends are born when nobody expects them. The underdogs, the forgotten, the overlooked, all rewrote history in thunder and dirt. Want more speed and fire? Don't miss our next video, The Fastest Horse Breeds in the World.